Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick. We're here to continue our series of That One Play. And the play we're discussing today is an interesting one that didn't have a lot of meaning to the Ravens season or in a lot of ways didn't help the Ravens make the playoffs. But when Jacoby Jones ran back a near touchdown on a kickoff against the Steelers in 2013, Mike Tomlin impeded him on the sidelines, and that's still a moment that I can see in my mind from time to time. Joining me here is Nick from the UK to talk about that play. He's the one who brought it up. Nick, how you doing?
Yeah, well, thank you, Ken. Thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It's always great to talk to new people, Nick, and we have lots of common experiences in terms of games we've watched, including that horrible game in 2017 where the Ravens went over to UK.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Terrible game. That was my only Ravens experience watching them live. So at some point, I'll get to watch them in Baltimore, hopefully.
Think about how lucky we are, Baltimore fans, to be in Baltimore and get to watch the Ravens live, if we so desire, if we have season tickets, that kind of thing. But even not that you're close to the epicenter of discussion on the Ravens. So that's nice as well. And the TV covers them and whatnot. But Nick, really appreciate you coming on. Let's talk a little bit. Do the setup for that play. Where were the Ravens in the season?
So Ravens were at 5-6 at that point of the season. It's Thanksgiving night, so I think that's about week 13. Steelers were also 5-6 on the evening, so we were both needed to practically win out to get into the Super Bowl.
Yep, it was definitely a difficult point. They just beaten the Jets the previous week, and the next week was that game against the Vikings, which ended up with 5 touchdowns in the last two plus minutes to set an NFL record. So they did actually have a little bit of comeback into contention by winning this game and the next 2. How about the game itself? Where were the Ravens in the game itself?
So it was just after halftime into the third quarter. Ravens had opened up really well. They looked good against the Steelers, which I remember them quite often looking good against the Steelers, and then the Steelers were able to come back over time. But they'd went ahead with some long balls. They were throwing a lot of long passes over the start of the season because they didn't have a run game that year, if you remember. They got maybe to, I think it was maybe 10-0 in front. Ken, is that right? At halftime?
13-0, either just after halftime. I'm sorry, at halftime you're asking me.
That's it, at halftime.
Yeah, they went up 13-0 early in the third. So yes, 10-0 at halftime.
Yeah, and then they come out of halftime. The Steelers come out and they get a big throw down, and they end up getting a touchdown just after the half, really. And so then it becomes our kickoff again. So we're returning the Pittsburgh kickoff, and it goes into Jacoby Jones. He has some blocking from some people who we definitely will remember. Carl Juszczyk was on the blocking. Vontae Leach and Pernell McPhee was also on the blocking. So they blocked it up the best that I'd seen any kick return get blocked. And of course, Jacoby Jones at this point can return from anywhere in the end zone. I felt that they were very aggressive that year on special teams. So they get it all blocked up. Jacoby Jones is through, as you say. He's running up to maybe the 40, 50-yard line of the Pittsburgh side. And I see Mike Tomlin is hanging around on the hashes just next to the sideline. I think, whoa, what's going on here? What's going on here? And so Jacoby Jones is impeded and he has to cut inside a little bit. And he ends up getting caught by Cortez Allen. And so he's tackled. It's very unfortunate because it looked like he was going to go all the way. Still had fresh memories of the Super Bowl, him going from going 108 yards all the way for the touchdown. So I thought he could do that again against the Steelers, and I felt that where we were just pulling away, I was always worried about the Steelers on the comeback, and so this was our chance to just move a little bit further ahead and probably close them out of the game. And I felt like Mike Tomlin obviously steps to start with. He's on the restricted area, Ken. Okay, the white area on the sideline, and that area is reserved only for referees and the chain gang. Mm-hmm. But it didn't seem to get picked up at the time on the field. And Collinsworth, I was watching the broadcast, Collinsworth didn't pick it up at the time either. And it wasn't until the fans in the stadium saw it on the Jumbotron and started going crazy, then it was picked up on the TV. And I just wondered, Ken, that you were probably at that game.
Oh, sure.
Did you realize it on the jumbotron as well?
I realized it in I thought I saw it in live action. Then we looked at it on the jumbotron. That's ridiculous. But as soon as Jacoby got up, he's pointing at Tomlin. So you really got it from that. I thought at the time, and so it it was one of those plays that just incredible that you see this happen, and we saw. There was yet another video that came out the next day that showed a more incriminating angle of what had gone on.
Yeah, so that was directly down the sideline. You could see directly down the white restricted area that Tomlin was standing on the field. He takes a step into the field and then he jumps back. And it looked very much to me like he had jumped back as if he was pretending that was his only move. He was trying to almost hide that he was coming onto the field to impede the pass whilst he was looking up at the jumbotron.
Yeah, it was the step onto the field, the measuredness of the step onto the field was what was really incriminating for me. It's basically he's on the white, he's watching the jumbotron, and that's what he said is, I usually watch on the jumbotron because I can't see well enough at field level, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't know how he can't see well enough at field level. The play was literally run directly in front of him. But anyway, what you see from the end zone is he's on the white. He's looking at the jumbotron. There's nobody obstructing him, and yet he takes a full step to his right directly, as if this was a measured dance step to go one step out. That's a foot or so onto the field, maybe more. And then Jacoby talked about it afterwards and said, "Wait a minute, is he trying to get in my way or something?" And what this took me back to a little bit was Joe Flacco at the end of the Super Bowl talking about how they should run on the field and tackle somebody.
Yeah, I remember seeing that actually, and I looked it up in the rule book, and that would be deemed to be palpably unfair if you did that, in which case the referee can just award you a straight touchdown. But Joe Flacco was complaining that he took a bit of stick about that, right?
Yes, he did, and he shouldn't have said it, and he should have realized that he was mic'd up and all the risks that go along with that. But it was just stupid in Joe Flacco's case. He wasn't actually going to do it. He went over to Matt Burke to ask him, "Hey, we should run on the field." He goes, "You first." And that was the right response there. Matt Burke understood. But in this case, I was up in arms about this. I thought Tomlin, for one thing, is a member of the competition committee. How do you make the rules if you can't live with them?
It's interesting enough, Ken. I looked in the rule book, as I said earlier. The rules are quite often agreed with the NFLPA. Okay. Mm-hmm. There is actually an NFL coaching association, which I found out about whilst I was looking into this. 31 of the coaches are on the NFLCA. It won't surprise you that Belichick is the one who's apparently not on it. Huh. But they don't have much sway in putting the rules in. So where there's some where there's some non-playing staff rules, and they have obviously so many rules governing the actual players. There's very, very little rules about the coaches themselves.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying here. There is a separate body called the Competition Committee, which includes representation from some but not all teams. And the last meaningful time this came up for the Ravens was this last season in deciding on the coin flip deriving the proposal for the coin flip for the playoff game. So they incredibly, 3 of the 4 AFC North teams have representation on that committee, including Harbaugh, Tomlin, and some woman in the Bengals front office. So I think she's a Brown or related to the Browns by marriage or whatever it might be. But anyway, she's on the committee as well. And apparently there's quite a bit of argument on that committee in deriving a proposal that would go to the NFL owners and have to be approved in short order to not allow a coin flip to decide the home of the Ravens Bengals game. So Tomlin has been on that committee for many years. And my thought was the fine is just money, and they fined him some significant amount of money. I don't remember if it was $100,000 or $500,000. What was it?
Yeah, it was $100,000 that they fined him. Yeah, absolutely.
First of all, not enough, but second of all, his basic response was, my wallet all comes from football, no big deal, I'll pay it, kind of thing. If it's no big deal, it's no deterrence. This is, it has to be a big deal. So, the 2 possibilities would have been, take the Steelers a draft pick. That's probably too much. But on the other side, it should have been take Tomlin off the competition committee. So this is just, look, maybe it's not permanent. Maybe you're suspended for 2 years or something from the competition committee, but it should be something that says meaningfully, you can't do that. And they just did not send that message, I don't think, clearly enough.
You would like to have seen that they could have caught it at the time, actually, Ken, I feel, because
Yes.
the line judge had to run around Tomlin to get back in the play. I was watching that, which effectively means that Tomlin was actually on the field. Previous week against New York Jets, I don't know if you remember, there was a penalty on the New York Jets bench for impeding one of the coaches. So they got 15-yard unsportsmanlike for that.
That was against the Ravens then, because they were.
Yeah, they had two. They had one where it was a strength and conditioning coach intentionally knocked over a gunner. Okay. But this second one against the Ravens, maybe in the third quarter of that game, the official, it was one of Triplet's officials, and he was complaining because the official wasn't able to officiate the game because the coaching staff were in the way on the sideline on a Jacoby Jones touch on a return. He returned it that time maybe to the 35. But yeah, so they got 15-yard unsportsmanlike for that. There's a difference, I think, between affecting a gunner on a play, who is obviously involved. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between that and affecting the actual ball carrier who's running for a touchdown, I feel. And if that happens, then the referee is within his rights to exclude Tomlin for the rest of the game. That would have been very interesting.
Oh, that would have been something too. This did happen in the 1954 Cotton Bowl, very famously in the United States. Is that a player came off the sidelines to make a tackle on a breakaway touchdown run, and a touchdown was awarded. The referees called it, but it's incredible that. There's plenty of precedent for it. It's not like there in this particular case with Tomlin on the field obstructing the play, there would have been absolutely zero backlash from there would have been upset Steelers fans complaining on the web, but who cares? But there would have been zero national backlash. Basically, everybody would have said that's the right call if they'd have given Jacoby Jones a touchdown on the play. I actually think there's probably a pretty good chance Jacoby would not have gone for a touchdown, even though he's fast. And he certainly seemed to have the lane there. The 15-yard penalty was what they actually ended up putting on.
I didn't see the 15-yard penalty actually saying that. No, I didn't say that. I didn't see that. No, I thought that Cortez Allen had already clattered Jacoby Jones during the second quarter when Jacoby was receiving. And so I don't know if that made just a little bit of difference in his speed. But yeah, you're right. Cortez Allen looked like he was going to catch Jacoby on his way through for the touchdown.
All right, it's just one of those things, and obviously the 2013 season didn't go the way the Ravens want, but they did have a little mini winning streak here that got them back into contention with 2 games left to play. They weren't able to get it done. They had a big chance against New England in the second to last game of the year, and then against Cincinnati.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, I thought that the Ravens dangled it out that we can maybe get the get the playoffs, and then they had the 4-game stretch, as you say. But when I was looking back at the 4-game stretch, that was the game where Justin Tucker scored 6 field goals against Detroit, and I'm kind of thinking if you can't get in the end zone against Detroit, who were not the great that year, then perhaps you shouldn't deserve to be in the Super Bowl in the playoffs. But it was the New England game for me. They came out. And they were really poor with some unlucky interceptions, I think.
Yeah, that was a horrible game. It's hard. I think they lost that game 40-7. So I wouldn't put any unlucky event in that game. They got pretty all trashed by the Patriots. All right. Well, Nick, go ahead.
I was just going to say they did also have a chance to get in the final week of the season against Cincinnati. But again, Joe Flacco struggled with interceptions against the Bengals, which was really, really frustrating. I think there was a few teams on the tiebreakers that could get in.
Very regular occurrence for Flacco, having trouble with the Bengals and their 4-man pass rush, getting home sometimes on him and then leaving 7 in coverage. Nick, just a pleasure to talk about this with you. I appreciate you coming on and doing your research, obviously, about this. Tell folks where they can talk football with you online.
So, yeah, I'm on Twitter at bwood, which is BWOOD FC _fan, FAN. which references my my English soccer team, which is in the 5th tier underneath the EPL, just in case anyone's worried.
We just had a little talk about this during the production meeting. Nick told me that his team is in the 5th tier, and their dream is to go up to the 4th tier. But 1,000 fans per game, roughly.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, maybe about 250 home fans. We're a very, very small, very tiny club. It's totally different from supporting the Ravens.
All right, outstanding. The tier system in English football, if you haven't gotten a little taste of that, it's very interesting. It really couldn't apply to a group like the NFL, but it'd be an interesting system. And if you don't like roller coaster parity, introducing this sort of thing to American football would be kind of an interesting way to get everybody off the roller coaster parity system, where they win, or they try and win and then they try and tank. So that's not something English football clubs try and do.
There's a real consequence if you tank and you end up getting relegated into a smaller group of teams with less money. Yeah, absolutely. It's much different from tanking to get the number 1 pick, for example. Yeah.
Very good. Nick, absolute pleasure talking with you. Other folks, if you'd like to be on That One Play episode, please just send me an idea via DM on Twitter. They're always open. Love to hear from you. I'll get back to you very quickly, I promise, and we'll be recording in no time. Nick, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you, Ken, and thanks to everyone else who has previously sat in my seat. Really appreciate it.
And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.